Hey, we know why we're here. We know what time it is. Weekly Wednesday webinar. As always, thank you for coming. And I'll see you at the end of the 5 minutes. We know what time it is. We know what time it is. Wednesday weekly webinar. The website omariaa.com. Deep breath, middle of the week. Affirmation of the day. I'm more powerful than I ever could have imagined. Why? Because I say so. And I take consistent action toward bettering myself and bettering those around me. And I'm a genius because I know that I'm not. And so therefore I become. Affirmation of the day. So remember, don't turn your back to the audience. So shoulders. So the first thing we'll do is address the question of the day from last week. Who is helping me succeed or fail? The biggest thing we can acknowledge is that the most important person that helps you succeed or fail is you. After that, where do I spend my time? Who do I spend time around? What type of things are we doing? When I go hang out with this person or spend time with this person, what type of behaviors are we committing? Again, it starts with me, and then we look externally after we embrace the reality. Who is helping me succeed or fail? When it comes to thought processes, when it comes to the amount of money you spend on somebody, your time, your energy, it's time to look at things from an objective standpoint instead of a subjective standpoint, which is a double standard, and you have a bias and resentment in there, and that's a whole different realm that we don't even want to step into. So it's just embracing the reality. So from last week, a brief synopsis, then we'll push to this week. You know the intent. It's about 4:50. I am late. We're supposed to start at 4:45. You know the intent. We go through the information from last week. We go through the new information for this week, and then we talk about it. And then we issue a new question for next week, and that's where we start. All right. So last week, if we're starting story writing process, how do I write a story? How do I write a book? What's the process that goes into that? And the biggest takeaways I want you to take is the intent. What is your intent? To entertain? Is it to educate? Is it to make a difference? Is it to make money? Is it to spread the intent behind your, maybe it's marketing. It's whatever your intent is, find that, embrace that, write that down, and then commit resources toward it in time. Remember, resources don't always have to be time. They can be relationships. They can be explicit versus implicit costs when it comes to the time we spend, the energy, the stress, the thought process that goes into it. All right. Inspiration. What do you want people to be inspired by? What are you inspired by? So me, I'm making myself vulnerable first. I think at this point we understand that. My intent with my book was to educate. It was a philosophy book that people at any age could go through and look at and embrace reality in a safe space. To have that conversation. That's the way I wrote it in conversation format. Was one long flowing conversation that we can put a pin in to come back, or we can push all the way through. You can jump around in it because all of it has a similar intent right there. And the intent is to inspire, to educate, empower, educate. That's my intent. So essentially, just what do you want? What's your purpose? And once you have that purpose, you allow yourself to be guided on a totally different trajectory than you normally would have without being as intentional, in my opinion. The second thing was communicating with purpose. What is the purpose of my communication? Remember, there's three types of communication. There's persuasive, which is getting somebody to change their mind on something. There's to inform, which is telling somebody about something. And then there's celebratory, which is we're celebrating something. Congratulations to this person. We're here to celebrate this person's achievements. And so the two takeaways was being effective. What do you want people to know? What do you want people to do? And then vocalize that. Tell them exactly what you want. Look, my intent is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you need for me to make it happen? That way you give them that leverage. You've done your part. If you don't communicate, that's on you. If you communicate, that's on them. Keep that in mind. And then let them ask questions. The power of being asked a question is one of the greatest things you can do. Be ominous. You don't have to tell everybody everything. Give little tidbits of information. If they want more, they'll come back. Give samples of yourself. You don't have to tell everybody everything. And frankly, they don't deserve that from you. So to value yourself a little more, I'm not saying you don't, just a little more, and let them ask. Because once they ask you, the power is, you have the leverage. You have that power. And you can choose whether to not answer it or answer it. And from there, now they're seeking. Now they see that commercial of you and they want to know more. Let me follow that link. Let me follow that YouTube video. Let me look up their social media, their website. That's where that comes in. Let them ask. If they're not asking, you're not interesting enough, including myself. The third thing, reading body language. Remember, 99% of communication is nonverbal. From what I'm wearing now, I think it looks nice. From my watch band, I'm sure you can see it being brown, to my belt being brown. Well, if the belt and the watch band is brown, you already know the shoes are brown. So it's being intentional with that. How am I carrying myself? Am I clean cut? Am I looking like a savage? How do I smell? What's my perception? So, and another thing that goes into that is brands too. People pay attention to a brand. If you go to this store and get coffee, oh, okay, great, you got coffee from that store. If you go to this store and get coffee, oh, I want to go there and get coffee. It's all about being intentional and understanding and comprehending the power of marketing, the power of body language, the power of representation, and then listen to listen. That's the biggest thing I want people to do. I'm finding that a lot of people listen to respond. That's not my intent, because we know our intent. Our intent is to be, remember, there's three types. Either I'm informing you, which is what I'm doing now. I'm persuading you, which is what I'm doing now, or I'm celebrating, which is what I'm doing now. You can do all three, but there's really three types of main speech. Other than that, it will come off convoluted. So what is your intent? Is it to listen to listen? Okay, after that, okay, now we're persuading, now we're celebrating, and now we're informing. All right. So this is a brief synopsis of last week, the story writing process, communicating with purpose, and reading body language. And that leads us to, maybe don't turn your back. Today, we're talking announcing affirmations, chess 101, and embracing the reality. Okay. So essentially what we're going to do is get better. This is what I've learned. Take it from me, hold me accountable if it's not right, and let's get better. The first thing, announcing affirmations. So the biggest thing, if you take away anything, is to make it public. It's the reason when you're on social media and they have a post from a year or two ago, is because if you were saying something that was significant or important, you want to be able to look on that and have that evidence that shows, hey, I forecasted it, I manifested it, I communicated it, and that was coming to fruition. And that's a very empowering feeling when you manifest something that didn't exist. You speak it with the vibrations of your words, because remember, vibrations are tangible. You can feel vibrations. They're now tangible. A thought is more dormant. It really doesn't exist. But when I speak it into existence, the power of my words, I've manifested it. From the manifestation, I write it down. From the writing it down, I put it into action, which is why we're here. This all started with the thought. So the biggest thing is to make it public. Okay? There's a power of being public. You've announced something, so now you have expectations to adhere to. And that's one of the things, too, that helps with the affirmations. Because now you've made it public. When you do step up to the plate, you empower yourself and earn that trust from those around you that you standing on something. And then record your progress. Remember, a millimeter is still progress. A centimeter is still progress. We might find it insignificant, but go ask a brain surgeon, go ask a neurosurgeon or a cardiac surgeon. Go ask them how significant a millimeter is. Hold on to that one. And establishing habits. Establishing habits. I set alarms on my phone. That way, when a certain time hits, I know I need to commit to this behavior. When something happens, I have an action that I need to do. Am I perfect with it? No. But the intent is there and the consistent action is there. So when it comes to affirmations, I'm not talking about the New Year's resolution. No, I'm talking about everyday things. Look, my intent is to live a healthier lifestyle. Well, we got to make sure it's smart. And what is that? Specific, measurable, attainable, time it, and realistic too. I think I butchered the order, but it's all in there. And so it's making sure we start with something, we manifest it, we make it public so we can empower ourselves and those around us, but most importantly, ourselves with information. We record the progress, even if it's minute. Remember, there's significance in a centimeter. There's significance in a millimeter. You deserve that. We need all the chips. We need all the pennies. We need all the nickels and dimes. We need all of that. So it's time to collect it. Collect that progress. We need that. That's equity. And to establish habits, set alarms on your phone. At this time, I need to do this. Even if it's something simple as setting an alarm, walking around your house, go eating a baby carrot, getting a drink of water. Because once you establish that, you can use that as a gateway to other things that are a little bit more significant in your mind. Okay? So the biggest takeaways, announcing affirmations, is to make it public. There's a power in being public. There's a power in communicating with other people. Record that progress, not for you, even if it's a millimeter or a centimeter. We need that. And establishing habits. I'm learning to get everything. To get everything. If it's a millimeter, a centimeter, if it's a drop of water or juice that I pay for, I need everything. When I go to places, I tell them, don't put ice in my drink. I need every drop. And then I get a side of ice. There you go. So the second thing we're talking about is chess 101. And we could do a better color. This one. And essentially, chess it's a thought process. A lot of people think it's a game you play. It's really a process of thinking. You have to budget. You have to manage your risks. You have to problem solve. And you almost have to look into the future in a sense when it comes to cause and effect. So the pieces, my intent with this one is to share the pieces, somewhat how they move, because we need a whole segment to really go through it to give it what it deserves, and then the thought process behind it. So the thought process we're covering now is budgeting, risk management, and problem solving. Cause and effects. If I do this, this will happen, and it will help me in the future this way. So you see how we're breaking down thoughts? That's the key. And so the pieces, let's briefly go through the pieces. And I'll give you a brief synopsis of it. So the first piece is the pawn. This is your front line. This is one of the most important pieces in the game. A pawn is your fence, it's your boundary line. While at the same time, a pawn can evolve by reaching the opponent's other side of their board. It can evolve into something more. All right. So then we have the pawn, then we have the rook. And when you look these up, you'll see the image that goes by it. The rook is I call it a catapult. Ooh, I'm not sure that's what that. Catapult. We're going to believe in ourselves. And if we make mistakes, we stand on it. If we do it right, we stand on that too. So it's the catapult. This one is meant to hit really, really hard, really, really fast. But it's a little clumsy. That's the drawback of it. The next piece is the bishop. The bishop is more, I call it like a sniper in the bushes. That's the one that moves on one color diagonally. So if I had to put it, this one is like arrow, bow and arrow archers. We have the knight. The knight is your horseman. This one moves in an L. This one is what I call a horseman. These are your soldiers on horseback. They can move a little different. They aren't great in close combat, but they can move really fast, really effectively. You want to give them space, let them run. So we have the pawn, we have the rook, we have the bishop, we have the knight, we have the queen, and we have the king. The queen is your most powerful piece. You don't need her. When you have her, it makes life so much more smooth when you're on the same page. The thing about the queen that makes her so important is she is the rook and bishop combined into one. So what two people can do, she can do herself. And how would I label her? The queen, this is power. Power and influence. There's nothing more powerful than the influence of a woman. I'll put it this way. If you have 100, I'm going to say it slow, and I'm going to say it twice. If you have 100 men and one woman, that's one child. If you have 100 women and one man, that's 100 kids. Power and influence. The king is you. This is the player. The king represents you, your life, your priorities, your resources, your successes, your failures. This is you on the board. And your job is to manage your resources toward getting the end result. The end result is that you protect you and trap them. It's called check or checkmate. So the whole point of the game is the checkmate of the king while managing your resources, while problem solving, while budgeting, and them doing the same thing. So it's not necessarily a game. It's really a thought process that we can use to apply to our everyday life. Risk management is easy. Risk management is budgeting. Risk management is paying your bills on time. Risk management is insurance. Risk management is, how much money do I have to go grocery shopping? What's the budget for my grocery shopping? And that ties in too. How much money do I have? What do I need to buy? And how do I make it work? How do I keep in the budget but still get to maximize it to get the most out of it? And then you problem solve. I have a problem. People come up for me. People come up for my resources, my chips. They come up for my livelihood. What can I do to delay them or prevent them long enough in order for me to fulfill my goal, which is the same thing that they're achieving? And so it's bigger. This is really big for my youth, for my kids, my students. To build them with this foundation, it only propels them later in life because then they can practice and enhance and make better and trial and error that thought process that they've learned here through this board game. It's really a thought process. So we talk about the affirmations, manifesting it, even speaking it out loud, and that way you have people that can provide evidence by being a witness, manifesting it. We talk about chess, the pieces, the names, the thought process that ties into it, and the skills that coincide with it as well. And now we talk about embracing the reality. We know why we're here. We're 20 minutes in. This is the purpose. 30 minutes max. I'm only going to be here for 30 minutes max. I'll see you next week. We'll continue to get better. If I'm wrong, hold me accountable. If I'm right, hold me accountable. I want both energies on a consistent basis. Embracing reality. Why is it important? I'm learning through my experience in the mental health field, a lot of us have baggage. We have unresolved trauma. Color. And we have resentment. We resent certain images. We resent certain people, certain names, certain logos, and representation. Whether we admit it or not, subconsciously, it's been embedded into us. And a person that can realize that subconsciously, where they're already here, embracing the reality anyway. So my biggest thing is that we strip off the band-aids on snake bites and we deal with it on a molecular level because it's eroding the arteries. And eventually it's going to get to the heart. And once it gets to the heart, that same infected blood plumps everywhere else. And so once it gets to the heart, it's a wrap. So my biggest thing is to prevent, not react. So baggage, unresolved trauma, resentment, and past relationships. This is how I want you to think of it. Look, we're here to fly. Point number one, let go and fly. We're here to fly. I'm going to draw a bird, makeshift bird. But under it, we have all this baggage that we're hanging on to. And all this baggage is here. The unresolved trauma, the resentment, the past relationships, the emotions, the double standard. And it's holding us. We're not reaching our full potential because we have baggage we need to let go. So the reason why embracing the reality is so important to me is once you accept that it happened, accept that you can do nothing to change the past, but you can change the present and the future. You let go. You start to shed off some of that dead weight. You start to let yourself breathe a little differently. You get that energy off you and you become lighter. And before you realize it, you look around and I've never reached this height before. You look down, you see all that baggage. You look down and you see a lot of people carrying some of the similar baggage, but maybe they won't let go. Why they won't let go? Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's ego. Maybe they've survived by holding on to it. So maybe it's a survival skill. It's a reason that deer look up and run because there is a deer somewhere along the line that didn't and got eaten. The other one said, wait a minute, I want to live. So this ego and pride, this has got to go. It's natural selection. If I want to live, I'm going to have to let go of this and do something different. So whenever I hear a noise, I'm looking up and I'm gone because I need to fly. I need to flourish. And you see, they're still here. You understand what I'm saying? It's bigger. And so we talk about freeing the blockage. So think of this as all of this in here. We'll even add that to it. And remember, you can always seek a professional counselor, a therapist, licensed therapist. Sit down and talk to people. Maybe find an unbiased individual in your life that you know is going to give you that mirror. Not necessarily take my side, not necessarily get upset or be too excited. It's that neutral person that can bounce ideas off me, that is reliable, that's stable emotionally, and that helps me process things, okay? And here's one, remember, don't turn your back, that listens to listen. So baggage, what happened to me in the past? Okay, and I'm gonna process each one. We're at 23 minutes. We're almost done. Don't worry, just stick with me. It's worth it. So the baggage, I had a relationship, and this is me just sharing, just brainstorming. I had a relationship in the past that maybe wasn't the most helpful, but I've held on to it to remind myself of where I've been and where I need to go. Well, that's great that you use it as a survival skill, but you can replace that. And you didn't come this far because of the baggage. You came this far because of you and your strength, because you're beautiful and hardworking. So let's go over that baggage. We're going to let go. We're going to drop that off. So now we get lighter. Let go of that baggage. I'm going to breathe. I can do nothing about it. In the future and present, I can build those affirmations and coping skills to deal with it. But I got to let that go in the past because it's weighing me down and we got to fly. It's time. Every second we spend here, we're dying. It's time to fly. Unresolved trauma. This happened to me in the past. I've been abandoned and neglected. I've had relationships where I've invested in it. What's to the contrary of my progression and benefit. And so I got to let go of that trauma. It built me the way I needed to be built, but now I don't need that anymore. I'm standing on it now. I don't need that energy anymore. It helped me, it benefited me as part of my survival skills. I'm going to acknowledge that, take a deep breath, and that unresolved trauma, I'm going to vocalize it. Even if I talk to nobody except me, I'm going to vocalize it. I'm going to stand on it. You know what we're going to do? We're going to let that go. And best believe everything you're letting go is going to come back to you and whisper to you at night. When you start to get frustrated and you have conflict with other people, it's going to say, give in to this energy. We still here. You let us go, so we still here. And we're going to be whispering to you late at night, whispering for you to give in, whispering for you to text that person you know you don't need to be texting, whispering for you to commit that behavior you know you don't need to be committing. It's going to be whispering. So now we have resentment. Man, I'm not going to lie. I don't like how I was treated here. I don't like how, I was, here's one that I can share. I remember I got called into the office with my supervisor, and I'm thinking that it was something that bore fruit. And so I sat down and conducted myself, professionally with accountability. And what they said to me was, I got complaints that your words, you're using an extensive vocabulary. They want you to use, kind of dumb the language down a little bit. And so I processed it. I said, the reason I'm being called in here is because my vocabulary is extensive and I challenge myself on using different words. I've kind of felt some type of way. It wasn't that my language was extensive. It's what I stood for. It was my representation. And so I held on to some resentment about that. And then society in general doesn't really assist with that. They don't want you in that position. They want you in a subservient, a predictable position, so the outcome would be predictable too. So you know what we got to do? This is the reality. Society is not really built for the representation to flourish. If it was, then there wouldn't be certain images in media on a consistent basis about a selective group of people, a certain demographic used with, how about this? Look at the news tonight and look at the adjectives in certain demographics. You know what we're going to do? Let it go. We got to fly. We got to let that go. Past relationships. Look, last time I used to pay people in advance. I don't pay people in advance anymore. You have to earn that, because I would pay people in advance. Then they would start acting funny. But I'm glad they did that, because they showed me who they were in character. So who knows, they might still be around and might be baggage. Who's helping me succeed or fail? Ultimately, first is me. After I vocalize that and stand on it and communicate it, let's look around. Who am I dealing with? Who am I doing business with? Who am I creating content with? And I'm finding that, some of the relationships they were helpful. They weren't the most progressive. And then I had a double standard. Well, you know what? They helped me in the past, so I'll let it go. No, you deserve better. Communicate the intent. Either they acclimate or they got to get left behind. Because you know why? We got to fly. Let it go. Ugh. My pride. I'm built on this. I'm standing on this. I'm this type of person. Stop. If you're on your deathbed, most of the stuff your pride and ego is built on, you won't even be worried about it. That's just another, what they say? That's just another leaf in the wind. I'm not worried about it. So when it comes to pride and ego, like me, I'm extremely prideful about my community, my representation, my family, and my content. OMARIAA.com. When you get there, you'll see it. That's what I'm prideful about. Somebody called me a name, that's great. If somebody want to box, we can box. I don't want to. If we're going to box, let's either put on the gloves or let's go step in this bathroom and lock the door behind us. And me, you, and God be the only witnesses. I'm standing on that type of stuff. So if people not really trying to do that, then I need to let it go. Because why? We got to fly. Let go of that pride. If you're not worried about it, think about this. If you're on your deathbed right now, what will be significant to you? What would you worry about? Worry about it now. The ego, they're not going to talk to me in this type of way. I'm not going for that, man. I'm telling you, whoa. What did they really do? Did they harm you physically? No. Did they harm your family physically? No. Did they deprive you of resources unjustly? No. They ain't talking about nothing. You know what we do? Let it go. We got to fly. My survival skills. This one is probably the hardest one, because where do you go with it? But by that time, everything we've processed, we need the skills, but we're creative enough to where we can find other ways to use it. We don't got to get upset in order to speak truth and speak with accountability. We don't have to alienate ourselves to be unbiased. We don't have to ostracize other people in order to tell them the truth. You dig what I'm saying? So it's about just taking a deep breath, treating people better than we want to be treated, because a lot of us have low self-esteem and want to be treated terribly. So let's go better. Let's go +2. Let's go +5. And remember, even a millimeter and a centimeter has significance, because you know what we got to do? We got to fly. How'd that feel? To me, man, it felt amazing. And this is one of the reasons why I started this, just so we get better. We get better. We communicate. We 30 minutes in. That's perfect for me. We're here. The intent is communicated. OMARIAA.com. The music, the books, the films, everything we stand on is what we stand on. And I just thank you guys for bearing with me. You see, we're getting better. The camera looks a little bit more sharp. The handwriting is a little bit more organized and neat than past episodes, those who've been bearing with me. And I'm getting better and better. Pretty soon, I'm going to have a live audience in here to where I'm talking to you still, but I'm engaging with the audience. I might have some people come up and interact a little bit. You want to know why? Because we got to fly. So take a deep breath. We're going to say a prayer, and we're going to call it. God, thank you for everything I have and everything I don't have, for everything that's worthy of me and for everything that's not, for all the stress that I'm going through and all the stress I'm not going through. I know everything is written. Everything is meant to be. And I thank you for everything that you're doing for me, everything you're doing for my family, for my community, as I lead by example. In your name, the beneficent, merciful. Amen. Weekly Wednesday webinar. Thank you again for your time, your energy. Constructive criticism, put pressure on me. If I'm not doing something right or my information is incorrect, you let me know. If you don't like the way I'm dressing, if you don't like how the brown watch band matches the belt, matches the shoes, hold me accountable. This is why we're here. We're here to get better, empower, and educate. Weekly Wednesday webinar. Thank you.